The air in the DMV was thick, stale, like old coffee and disappointment. I clutched my ticket. B47. My number felt miles away. I remember staring at the faded travel posters on the wall, wishing I were anywhere else. A baby was crying somewhere in the back. A man was loudly complaining about the wait. The fluorescent lights hummed, a dull, annoying sound. The chairs were hard plastic, uncomfortable, designed to make you want to leave as quickly as possible. I sighed, shifting in my seat. My phone battery was low. I'd forgotten my book, just me and my thoughts, and the collective boredom of everyone else waiting. We were all waiting for our numbers to be called, for this small, tedious part of our day to be over. Then a voice crackled over the loudspeaker, announcing a new number. Now serving G12. G12 at window 3. A man stood up. From the corner of my eye I saw him rise, tall, wearing a military uniform, and then everyone froze. My heart stopped. I think for a moment the whole world did. My name is Sarah. And G12. G12 sounded so familiar, like an echo from a painful dream. But it couldn't be. The man in uniform, he was walking towards window 3. My brother David, he was gone, lost. That's what they told us. 7 years ago. David, my little brother, always chasing butterflies, always with scraped knees and a bright, hopeful smile. He had a laugh that could fill a room. A spirit that could light up the darkest day. He grew up too fast, it felt. One day he was arguing about cartoons, his face smeared with chocolate. The next he stood before us, tall and proud in his newly pressed uniform. So determined. I'm joining the army, Sarah, he'd said, his eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and solemn duty. Mom cried, her shoulders shaking silently. Dad tried to be strong, his face a mask of forced composure. I just felt a knot in my stomach. A cold, creeping dread. We were proud, of course. So fiercely proud. But underneath we were scared. Terribly, terribly scared. He left for training. Then for a place far away. A place with dust and danger. A place we only saw in frightening news reports. His letters were short at first, cheerful, trying to reassure us. Don't worry, he'd write. I'm fine. The food's not great, but I'm with good men. We look out for each other. We clung to those words. Each letter was a lifeline, a precious connection to him. Then the letters stopped. For a week. Then 2. The silence stretched thin and taut like a wire about to snap. The dread in our house grew. It was a monster, lurking in the shadows, feeding on our fear. Then the men in uniform came to our door. Not David, 2 other men. Their faces were grim. Their words were gentle, carefully chosen, but they shattered our world into a million pieces. Missing in action, they said, presumed. They didn't finish the sentence. They didn't have to. We understood. The years that followed were a blur, a gray, suffocating fog of grief. Hope is a funny thing. It flickers. It dies down to an ember. Then a tiny spark ignites again, fueled by a memory, a dream, only to be snuffed out by the harsh reality. We held memorials. We cried until we had no tears left. Or so we thought. Mom kept his room just as he left it. For years, his baseball glove on the bed, his posters on the wall, a shrine to a life cut short. Dad grew quiet. He aged so much in those first few months. The laughter lines around his eyes deepened into grooves of sorrow. I tried to be the strong one for them, but inside I was broken. A piece of me was missing, lost with David. Every phone call made my heart leap, then sink with disappointment. Every knock on the door sent a wave of anxious hope, then crushing despair when it wasn't news of him. His birthday cake went uneaten for the first few years. Then we just lit a candle, silently, sharing a look that spoke volumes of our shared pain. The holidays were the worst. His empty chair at the table screamed louder than any Christmas carol. I'd often find Mom in his room, just holding one of his old t-shirts to her face, tears silently falling, her body shaking with quiet sobs. Dad threw himself into work, trying to numb the constant ache in his heart. I tried to be the glue, holding our fractured family together. But some days, I felt like I was made of dust, ready to scatter in the wind. I'd look at his photos, trying desperately to remember the exact sound of his voice, the unique cadence of his laugh, fearful that those precious details were fading from my memory. We joined support groups. We talked to other families who understood. Some found closure. We just found more questions. The not knowing. It was a special kind of torture. A wound that never truly healed. Just kept weeping, raw and open. Life, somehow, went on. Because it had to. Birthdays passed. Anniversaries. Seasons changed. We learned to smile again. A different kind of smile. A smile that never quite reached our eyes. A smile that hid the constant ache. We had to. For David. We thought he'd want us to live, even if he couldn't. So there I was, at the DMV, renewing my license. A normal day. A boring task. A Tuesday. Completely unprepared for the moment that would change everything. 12. The man in uniform. He started walking towards window 3. Slowly, stiffly. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just the uniform. It was his walk. I knew that walk. Even changed, heavier, more deliberate. I knew it. His hair was shorter than I remembered. Darker, maybe. Or was it just the dull light in this place? He was thinner. Much thinner. And there were lines on his face. Lines that hadn't been there before. Scars. One snaked from his temple down his cheek. Faded. Silvery. But undeniably there. My mind screamed. No. It can't be. It's not possible. This is a dream. A cruel hallucination. But my heart knew. It pounded against my ribs. A wild, frantic drum. David, is it really you? My eyes traced the scar again. It was pale, old, but it spoke of pain. Of survival. His cheekbones were sharper than I remembered, making his face seem gaunt. His eyes, they held a wariness that no young man should know. There were new lines around them, like tiny etched maps of suffering, and deeper ones etched on his forehead. His uniform, though neat, seemed to hang on his frame, a size too big. He looked like a sketch of my brother, drawn by someone who had only heard a vague description. The essence was there, the familiar bone structure, but the details were smudged and altered by hardship. My mind reeled. Could this be a cruel joke? Someone who looked so much like him. A trick of the light, of my own desperate longing. But the way he stood, that slight tilt of his head when he was listening intently, it was David. Every instinct, every fiber of my being, screamed his name. But it was a name I hadn't dared to hope to say out loud in so long. He reached the counter. The clerk, a bored-looking woman with tired eyes, glanced up from her computer. Number? She asked, her voice flat, not really looking at him. He cleared his throat. His voice, oh his voice, raspy, deeper than I remembered, changed. But underneath the gravelly tone, it was him. 12, he said. Then, he paused. A small, almost imperceptible hesitation. My name is David Miller. That's when it truly happened. The freezing. It wasn't just me this time. The man next to me stopped mid-cough. His face contorted. A woman further down the row dropped her purse. The contents spilled across the floor, unnoticed. Coins rolled away. The clerk's pen hovered over her paper, her own eyes widening, slowly, disbelievingly. David Miller. Our David. The hometown hero everyone in our small town had mourned. The boy whose smiling picture had been in the local paper for months after he went missing. The soldier who was gone. But he wasn't. He was here, standing in the DMV, on a Tuesday afternoon. I stood up. My legs were shaking, like jelly. I didn't consciously decide to move. It was as if an invisible string was pulling me, until I was halfway there, towards him. My ticket B47. Fluttered from my numb fingers to the floor, forgotten. The silence in the DMV was absolute, heavy. You could hear a pin drop. All eyes were on him. And now on me. As I walked towards him, each step an eternity. He hadn't seen me yet. His back was mostly to the room. He was focused on the clerk, or trying to be. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself, so tight, so guarded, like a wild animal, wary of its surroundings. Then, he must have felt the collective weight of the stairs, the sudden intense silence. He turned, slowly. His eyes scanned the room, blankly at first, a little lost. Then, they met mine. Time stopped again. His eyes, David's eyes. They were older, so much older, haunted. But they were his. I saw a flicker of something in their depths, confusion. Then, a dawning realization, a shock that mirrored my own. Sarah? His voice was a whisper. A breath of sound, but I heard it. Across the sterile room. Across 7 long, agonizing years of pain and silence. David, I choked out. My own voice was a stranger to my ears, thick with unshed tears. Tears were already streaming down my face. I didn't care. I didn't care about the stairs, about the gasp that rippled through the room. I ran the last few steps. I threw my arms around him. He felt so thin, so fragile beneath the uniform. Not the strong, vibrant brother I remembered from bear hugs and playful wrestling. He flinched. Just for a second. A tiny, almost imperceptible stiffening. Then, his arms came around me, holding on, so tight, like he was drowning. And I was his only lifeline in a stormy sea. It's you. I sobbed into the rough fabric of his uniform. It's really you. It's really, really you. He just held me. He didn't speak. I could feel him trembling. Or maybe we were both trembling, locked in an embrace that bridged years of separation and unimaginable suffering. The DMV, the people, the world outside, it all disappeared. There was only this moment, this impossible, miraculous moment. My brother was alive. My brother was home. Someone, a kind-faced DMV employee, gently led us to a small private office, away from the staring eyes, away from the whispers that had started to ripple through the DMV like wildfire. Mom and Dad, I had to call them. But first, David. I looked at him, really looked at him, now that the initial shock was wearing off, replaced by a million questions. The scars, the haunted look that never quite left his eyes. David, I began, my voice soft, still shaky. Where have you been? What happened to you? He looked down at his hands. They were rough, calloused, knuckles scarred. He took a deep, shaky breath. It's a long story, Sarah, he said. His voice was still raspy, like he hadn't used it much. A hard story. I called Mom. My hand was shaking so much I could barely dial the numbers. Mom, I whispered, my voice cracking. You need to come to the DMV. You and Dad. Now. There was immediate panic in her voice. Sarah, what's wrong? Are you hurt? Is it an accident? No, Mom. It's David. Silence on the other end of the line. A long, breathless silence. Then a choked sob. Sarah, don't play with me, Sarah. Please. My heart can't take it. I'm not, Mom. I swear. He's here. He's alive. I heard Dad in the background, his voice urgent, questioning. The frantic questions. They arrived in what felt like seconds, though it was probably 20 minutes. Mom saw him first as she burst through the office door. She just stopped. Her hand flew to her mouth. A sound escaped her, a wail of disbelief, and pure raw emotion that tore through me. Dad, who I'd seen cry only once before in my life, just buckled. He leaned against the door frame for support, his broad shoulders shaking, tears streaming down his weathered face. David stood up, so uncertain, his eyes wide and vulnerable. Mom rushed to him. She didn't say anything at first. She just touched his face, his hair, his arms, as if to convince herself he was real, solid, not a ghost conjured by grief. Then Dad was there, crushing David in a hug that spoke of years of unspoken grief, of desperate hope, of a father's broken heart beginning to mend. The 4 of us, huddled together in that small sterile room, felt like the only people in the world. A family, shattered by loss, and now unbelievably, piecing itself back together. He told us bits and pieces then. More later, over the following days and weeks, when the rawness of the reunion had softened just a little. David had been captured. Soon after he went missing. His patrol was ambushed. He was a prisoner. For years, Sarah. He spoke of things I can't repeat. Things that will haunt my dreams. And I only heard the sanitized version. He escaped. With another soldier, a friend he'd made in captivity. It took them months of hiding in harsh terrain, of running, of nearly giving up, so many times. He was sick, injured, malnourished. He ended up in a remote hospital, run by an international aid organization, in a neighboring country. No identification. He had lost so much weight, was so battered, he was unrecognizable. He was delirious for weeks. When he finally recovered enough to speak coherently, he was confused, severely traumatized. He couldn't remember everything clearly, especially at first. His name, where he was from, it came back in flashes, in terrifying nightmares. He didn't have his dog tags, no proof of who he was. He was just another refugee of war, lost and broken. He told me he was afraid. Afraid to trust anyone. Afraid the enemy was still looking for him. He spent more than a year in that refugee camp, slowly painstakingly piecing himself back together, both physically and mentally, working small jobs, trying to earn enough money to make a call, to find a way back. He didn't even know if we were still alive, or if we had moved. He was scared of what he'd find if he did make contact, or what he wouldn't. The people at the aid station were kind. Eventually they helped him connect with the American embassy. It was a slow bureaucratic process, verifying his identity, cutting through layers of red tape. He didn't want to call us until he was sure, until he was on American soil. He couldn't bear the thought of giving us false hope. Not again. He'd only just arrived back in the States a few days ago. He was at the DMV to get a state ID, to start over, to try and feel normal again. He hadn't even called us yet. He was going to. He said he was building up the courage. He didn't know how to bridge the chasm of 7 lost years with a single phone call. Bringing David home was like welcoming a beloved stranger. He looked like David. He sounded mostly like David. But the war, the captivity, it had changed him. Deeply, irrevocably. He was quiet, withdrawn. He jumped at loud noises. A car backfiring sent him diving for cover. He barely slept. Nightmares were his constant companions, their shadows lingering in his eyes long after he woke. Mom cooked all his favorite foods, hoping to coax back a flicker of the boy he once was. Dad tried to talk to him about baseball, about fishing, little things, normal things. I just sat with him, sometimes in silence, sometimes I'd read to him out loud, from an old favorite book, just like when we were kids, and he was sick. Healing isn't a straight line. We learned that quickly. It's messy. It's agonizingly slow. There were good days. Days when we saw a flicker of the old David, a ghost of his old easy smile, a hint of his infectious laugh. Then there were bad days. Days when the darkness pulled him back under, and he retreated into himself. We learned patience. We learned a new kind of love. A love that was fierce, protective, unconditional. Our family was whole again. But we were different. Changed. Like a beautiful vase that had been shattered and painstakingly pieced back together. The cracks were still there, visible, but they told a story of survival, of resilience, of hope, of a love that never ever gave up. There were days he wouldn't leave his room, the curtains drawn tight against the world shut out. Mom would leave a tray of food by his door. Sometimes he ate, sometimes he didn't. I bought him a journal and a pen. He started to write, pages and pages, filled with his tight, cramped handwriting. He never let us read it, but I think it helped, getting the poison out, one word at a time. He started taking short walks, at first just in the backyard, his shoulders hunched, his eyes scanning, then around the block, always with his rescue dog, Duke, by his side. Duke, a scruffy terrier mix, with equally haunted eyes, became his shadow, his furry therapist. David started to smile when Duke did something silly. A real smile, small but genuine. It was like watching a frozen river thaw in early spring. Slow, painful, but then the water would start to flow again. He agreed to see a doctor, then a therapist who specialized in combat trauma. Those were big steps, hard steps. He was fighting to come back to us. Not just his body, but his spirit too. We had to learn a new dance around him. Loud noises were out, sudden movements made him flinch. We tiptoed, emotionally and sometimes literally, especially in the beginning. Our family conversations changed. We learned to avoid topics that might trigger his trauma. We learned to read his silences, to understand the unspoken language of his pain. It wasn't easy. There were times we felt helpless, frustrated, times we argued, out of sheer exhaustion and fear, but we always came back together. We were learning to be a new family, one that had been through the fire and emerged, scarred but stronger, one that knew the true meaning of fragility, and of incredible strength. Mom finally stopped keeping his room like a shrine. She let David redecorate it, painted a new color, a small thing, but it meant she was letting go of the ghost of the past David, and embracing the man who had returned. Dad started inviting David to his workshop in the garage. They'd spend hours there, not saying much, just working with their hands, building birdhouses, fixing an old engine, rebuilding their bond, piece by piece. David started therapy regularly. He met with other veterans in a support group. Slowly, very slowly, he began to open up, to talk about what happened, to heal those invisible wounds that were deeper than any scar. His dog Duke was always there. They saved each other, I think. He started helping Dad in the garden. Small steps, but each one was a victory. The town, our little town, welcomed him back as a hero. There were articles in the local paper again, this time with a happier headline. A small parade down Main Street. David hated the attention. He shied away from the spotlight, but he understood. He was a symbol of hope, a reminder that miracles can happen, even in the most unexpected places. Like a Tuesday at the DMV. Life isn't perfect now. It never will be. There's a shadow that lingers, a memory of loss, of time stolen. But there's also an incredible light, the light of David's return. It taught us what truly matters. Family, love, time. Each day is a gift. We don't take it for granted anymore. Not one single moment. Sometimes I still can't believe he's really here. I'll see him sitting on the porch, watching the sunset with Duke at his feet, and my heart swells with a gratitude so profound, it takes my breath away. He's home. My brother the soldier. He's finally truly home. Thank you for listening to our story. If it touched your heart, please give this video a like, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories like this. What did you think of David's incredible return? Let us know in the comments below. We read every one.